All right, it's 10 o'clock. Well, actually, it's 10:02, but that's fine, right? All right, guys, today we're talking about connection after COVID. So if you look on the playlist I think it's starting on today, you will be able to see the podcast episode for uh, pretty much the same thing. So, how to reconnect after COVID. So, this live stream is basically for the same thing. So if anybody is in the chat and you want to ask a question, just go ahead and type that into the chat. And pretty much whatever we talk about today or whatever I talk about today will also be in the podcast. Like we're gonna cover three areas, and those same three areas will be in the podcast episode on YouTube under playlist podcast, and it will drop on today the 11th, so I guess Tuesday the 14th. All right, so connection after COVID. So the thing that we want to get back to is reconnecting with ourselves for the biggest part, but also reconnecting with others, right? So when we went through COVID, what happened was we were all staying in the house. We weren't getting out. We weren't seeing people. We weren't interacting with people. And if we did, in most cases, we were wearing a mask, right? So, not the typical mask that we would wear if we were just trying to impress someone or be someone different for a certain outcome, but a literal mask that covered half of our face. And the most important part of that, which was or is the mouth. Are we smiling? Are we happy? Are we sad? What are we thinking? What are we feeling? All of that based on facial expression that we weren't able to see and we weren't able to show. So, coming out of that, it's been what, 4 years, 5 years later, it's time for us to reconnect with other people, but also to reconnect with ourselves. So if we were home during that period, a lot of us lived alone. So if you were home alone, you didn't have a lot of social events to go to because there weren't any. And you just had to stay home with your own thoughts. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? In some cases, that may have been a little painful, right? You may have thought, I don't really like this. I don't feel good. I don't like thinking about what I'm thinking about. So you could be a person that dealt with that. Maybe you were sad, maybe you were mad, maybe you were lonely, or you could be someone that used distractions or something to cope to get through. So you may have used alcohol, you may have smoked weed, you may have played video games, you may have gone shopping online. You may have eaten a whole bunch of crappy food or binge watched something on TV or watched porn or I don't know if you live alone, if you had sex, if you masturbated, if you looked for other people to have sex with, and if those people actually showed up during COVID. That's pretty impressive. Or maybe you lived with your family, but you were always in the house with your family and you still kept everything inside. And because you kept everything inside, maybe you also used certain types of coping mechanisms, drinking, smoking, video games. Whenever you had a chance to go back to that thing that took your mind off of the things that you were feeling that you didn't want to feel or the thoughts that you didn't want to think, you moved over to those. You watched something on TV or you scrolled on your phone. So in those periods, or in that period, we could have gone two ways. We could have been within ourselves and not really doing too much, or we could have taken the opposite route and said, I'm home alone. I'm thinking all these things. How can I feel better? How can I think better? So maybe you turned to like reading books or watching videos or listening to audiobooks and kind of figuring out why you're thinking and feeling the ways that you're thinking and feeling and what you can do to feel better. So that's kind of like the positive side of reconnecting or connecting with yourself in a time where there weren't a lot of people around and there was not a lot of social events taking place. So, if you were in the space where you were distracting yourself with substances or other activities, now is a time to actually connect with yourself for the first time. And that's one of those where you go back to videos, reading books, sitting in silence, meditation. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Self inquiry. And that's a really good one. That's one that I use very often. What am I thinking and what am I feeling? And just kind of sit there in silence. Sometimes I will sit in my car. Sometimes I will just sit in my bedroom. Sometimes I'll sit in the living room. Sometimes I'll sit in the backyard, but there tends to be a few more distractions in the backyard, maybe not all part of nature. So, sitting at the park is usually good. I sit at the river. If it's summer, I can feel the wind. I can feel the sun. I can go for a walk. I can do a meditation while I'm walking, or I can just simply just sit there and think about what I'm thinking about. What am I feeling? Why do I feel sad? Why do I feel lonely? And then kind of map that back to things that have maybe caused that. Maybe I had a breakup. Maybe I had an argument with someone and I feel like that person doesn't like me or that person doesn't feel the same way about me. And that could lead to me thinking, oh, that person is not the person that I thought they were, or that person doesn't feel the same way about me that I thought they did. And then that's going to lead to feelings, right? You're going to get those feelings of sadness. You're going to get those feelings of loneliness. Maybe you'll even get feelings of anger. So when you start to sit in silence and think about what you're thinking about and think about what you're feeling, you can think back to situations that happened that are potentially causing you to feel and think that way. And that's always really good regardless of the time period or the time frame that we're going through. If we just take time to sit and think about what we're thinking about. Why do I feel like my job is not the right job? Why do I feel like my boss doesn't like me? Why is my relationship, why does it feel like it's suffering? Why can't I communicate better? Why do I feel like I'm always doing something wrong? Why do I feel like I always make a mistake? Why do I feel like I take three steps forward and two steps backwards? You know, those types of things we have to ask ourselves. What's going on with me? Why do I think it's happening? How often has it happened? And then think, what can I do so that it doesn't happen in the future and so that I don't feel this way in the future, right? So that's where we are with kind of getting back in touch with ourselves and reconnecting with ourselves. You can meditate, you can sit in silence, you can read books about it, you can watch videos about it. Um, and like I said, one of the biggest things for me is just kind of like sitting in silence and figuring out what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling it, thinking about how my day went, how my week went. And then once you figure that out, you can kind of set the intention for how you want your week to go next week, or how do you want the rest of today to go, or how do you want tomorrow to go. So when you think about that and you're kind of conscious of it and you look forward to, oh, I want to be in this state of mind. I want to feel like this. It's a little bit easier because sometimes we just kind of go through life and we're just like, we're out there and we're doing it and we're not really thinking about what we're doing, why we're doing. And that's where we kind of get caught up in these thoughts and feelings that we don't really want or that don't really serve us or that we're not really happy with. So, setting an intention about how we want to feel, how we want to think, and how we want the day and the week to go is always very important. So, the second aspect of that reconnection is connecting with other people. So, after COVID, things started happening, right? We started having social events. We started going out more. Restaurants were open, stores were open. We could do things. But there are a lot of us that got so caught up in being alone, staying alone, that we just kind of kept those habits going. I don't need to go out. I don't need to see people. I don't need to meet people. I don't need to talk to people. I just text. I don't need to call. Calling is always so much more important. It's such a great connection. You can hear the person's voice, you can hear their tone, you get a sense of what they're thinking and feeling. And that's always a much greater way to connect than to send a text message. If you were in a position where you were distracting, watching videos, playing games, eating food, shopping online, scrolling on your phone, and you could actually do that continuously, switch back and forth, right? I watch TV for 2 hours. I scroll on my phone for 1 hour. I eat for 30 minutes. I watch porn for 30 minutes. I go back to my phone. I go back to watching TV. And then before you know it, the day is over. It's time for bed. You get up the next day and you do it all over. You do it all over. So if you are one of those people that got in that kind of a loop and it became a habit, then one of the things to do is to start calling your friends, start going out more, start scheduling social events. And it doesn't have to be, a party of 100 people. It just needs to be something simple where you go out and you interact with people. For me personally, I make coffee at home every day. I love it. It's delicious and it's very inexpensive. But there are also days where I really like the experience of going to the local coffee shop. I talk with the people there, I talk with the people that make the coffee, and that in itself is a nicer experience than just being home alone, making coffee for myself, drinking coffee by myself. It's me getting out, it's me interacting, it's me talking, it's me smiling, experiencing, feeling what people are feeling. And just that interaction is enough to kind of like make my morning a little more bright, a little more exciting versus I get up every day, I make coffee, I drink it at home, and then I do my thing, whether it's working on my regular work, working on YouTube work, working on fitness or going to the gym or whatever it is. It's a much better experience if I actually get out of the house and get coffee from the local coffee shop or go out to dinner with a friend or go to the coffee shop, call somebody or text someone and say, "Hey, I'm going for coffee at 9:30. Can you meet me there? Here's where I'll be." Meet them, talk to them for a half hour, an hour. Who knows? You might talk to them for 3 hours. But all of the little things that we can do to start reconnecting with people, getting back out and making sure that we're not just isolated because we're human. We need connection. We want connection. And it's very easy to say, well, I haven't done that. And I'm satisfied with doing what I've been doing, which is maybe scrolling or shopping or eating or drinking or whatever it is. Just kind of like set that aside and say, oh, I'm going to go out with family. I'm going to take my brother to lunch. I'm going to take my sister to lunch. I'm going to call my mom or my dad. I'm going to call my maybe best friend or maybe just someone that I know likes to go out for coffee. I think we tend to overthink who can I call? When can I call them? Why would I call them? Instead of just saying, I want coffee. There's a pretty good chance this person might want coffee. Let me just call them and ask them. Or let me say to them, I'm going for coffee. Would you like to meet me? Can you meet me? Right? Kind of put it in a position where people feel like they're being invited to enjoy an experience with you versus them feeling like, oh, you're lonely, you need me, I don't have time, right? You kind of want to make it feel like, let's experience this thing together. Let's get together and share. Let's communicate. Let's connect. Let's have something that goes back and forth that means a little bit more than just sitting home and watching TV or scrolling on our phone. So you go from staying in the house, being isolated and alone, to reconnecting with yourself, understanding what you're thinking and feeling. And if you have questions about how to do that, more examples of how to do that, um, comment in the chat or drop a comment below. And then also reconnecting with others. And that can be coworkers. I know a lot of things are taking place on Zoom still. You know, it's been 4 years and we're still using Zoom for everything. And I'm still working from home. If you're still working from home and you're having meetings via Zoom, then of course you can reach out to coworkers and say, hey, I know you live in my area. Can we grab lunch? Can we grab dinner? Call up a family member, call up a friend, call up someone that you haven't spoken with in a while, and just kind of like set up a schedule. I go out every week and I do meetups, meetup.com. They have social events. I have a few people there that I see regularly. They are becoming friends. They're not really close friends that I would technically have in my phone that I text outside of the meetup, but at the same time, that's still building connections. If you see people at the gym, if you go to the gym, if you see people at the park, if you walk or run or jog or walk your dog at the park or in your neighborhood, kind of like strike up a conversation with people. Let people see your face, smile, make eye contact. And then slowly, like you'll build relationships. They don't have to be anything major, but just the fact that we're connecting, we're talking, we're communicating, those are very important things for us as humans. And it's time for us to kind of start moving back in that direction of reconnecting, communicating, being in person, hearing the person's voice, hearing their tone, seeing their face. Are they smiling? Are they angry? How are their eyes looking? How are their teeth? How are their lips? All of those things are part of the human connection. And we miss out on all of that when we send a text message or even if we have a phone call, right? Having a phone call is so much better than sending and receiving a text message. But at the same time, it's certainly not the same as sitting next to someone, sitting across from someone, and having a conversation about whatever you want to have a conversation about. You could also find people that are interested in some of the same things that you're interested in and then meet regularly to talk about those things, whether it's fitness or cooking or reading or travel or wine or food or whatever it is. Just kind of get together on a monthly basis, talk about that one thing. Where are you going for summer? Where are you going for the holidays? Do you want to plan a trip together? Maybe it's only two of you, maybe it's four of you. Personally, I always set up my travel so that when I get to the destination, I kind of have some social events scheduled, and I'm okay with meeting strangers. I like meeting strangers. So I'll go on like tours and I'll meet people from various states or from other countries and just interact with them. What do you do? What do you like? Where are you from? Are you married? Do you have kids? What are your hobbies? What other places have you traveled to? Just anything to interact and reconnect and keep that human connection because after all, we are human and that's what we need. So if you're feeling a certain way, like depression or anxiety or loneliness, one of the things that's going to help that is interacting with people. We tend to get depressed. We tend to feel lonely. We tend to think we're the only ones, right? I'm the only one that feels lonely. I don't want anyone to know that I feel lonely because no one else feels lonely. That's crazy. Everyone gets lonely. Everyone gets sad. Everyone feels angry. You don't have to throw things and beat up people, but everyone feels angry. I'm angry with this situation. I'm angry with this person for this reason, and kind of just have a conversation about that. You don't even need to be in a situation where you're offering advice, you're offering suggestions, or you're asking the person for advice or suggestions. You could just be there to talk. Just listen to me. Let me just listen to you. And that's very therapeutic. It's just one of those things where actually getting it out of our body, getting it off our mind or off our chest, as a lot of people will say, makes us feel better. All right. So if you have questions, please drop those in the chat. And, or if you're seeing this after the live stream, go ahead and drop a comment below. And also don't forget to listen to the YouTube podcast episode on COVID and reconnection. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for stopping by.